My beautiful, beautiful subscribers, I'm back with another one. And as I record this video, it is currently 4:30 a.m. But I said I'm going to stay consistent with my content, and here I am again on your screen. But let's dive right into the topic, right? Today, I have an opinion. That opinion is that Kenya's affordable housing project should first tackle Kibera slash Kibra, however you pronounce the place, right? How did I get to this conclusion or this opinion? Earlier today, I was looking at Kenya's affordable housing project, and I went down a whole rabbit hole from trying to understand when it was first introduced to how many units have been promised over the years, how many units have actually been built, how many are currently being built, projected to be completed, all that good stuff, even where they're currently being built, all that, right? That then led me to Google Earth. As you guys know, I spend an unhealthy amount of time looking at the world from up above, specifically Kenya. It helps you understand things differently, right? I looked at all our different slums and eventually landed on Kibera. Now, if you guys know, Kibera is one of the largest, if I'm correct, informal settlements slash slums in not only Kenya, but also East Africa and Central Africa, if I'm correct. So, first question I tried to understand was how did Kibera come to be? How did this large piece of land that a bunch of people live on, very far below the average wage, how did that come to be? And what I found out was that in the early 1900s, Nubian soldiers, members of the King's African Rifles, were allocated parts of what became known as Kibera slash Kibra. But this was more of a temporary Shamba Pass arrangement rather than a legal land title. Okay? That's another question that I had too. I asked myself, was this land owned by people or was it owned by the government? Because over the years, I've always heard like two different narratives. One narrative was that Kibera is owned by slumlords who don't want to develop the area because they make a bunch of money from uh, their informal settlements. And on the other hand, I always heard that it's government land and people moved in there a while back and they don't want to leave, etc. So I went down further on the rabbit hole, and it says that over the decades, especially post independence, the land was reclassified to by successive governments as state land or unauthorized settlement, which made the resident squatters in the eyes of the state. So, confirmation, it is owned by the government, not by slumlords, from what I understood before. Maybe the slumlords own the actual Mabati homes that sit on the land, but the land belongs to the government, okay? Now, the land on which Kibera sits is public land owned by the Kenyan government despite the settlement's large population and long history. Even though Nubian soldiers were originally granted use of the land in the early 20th century, they were never granted formal title deeds, and the government has never recognized their ownership. So, back to the whole topic. Now that we understand how Kibera came to be and that it sits on government land, not private land. So, the affordable housing project I looked into. Where we at? Okay, let me go to the summary. I'm not going to give you all this stuff. So, promise versus delivery. President Ruto vowed to build up 250,000 affordable housing units per year, later revised to 200,000 units annually, with a goal of 1 million units by 2027. In reality, the number of completed homes is so far is limited, ranging from just over 1,000, and these are estimates from different sources in Kenya, independent sources that aren't part of the government. So, so far the completed homes are ranging from just over 1,000 to under 6,000. Most of the achievement claims hinge on units under construction or in planning, not homes handed to Kenyans. The discrepancy between bold targets and actual delivery underscores both execution challenges and the need for greater transparency in what counts as built. Okay, so as we understand, and I believe this project started even under Uhuru's governance. I believe he also promised housing units, but the one that drew me in was the Mukuru Affordable Housing Projects. I think I saw this place myself when I was in Kenya 3 months ago. I was standing on top of KICC and I looked in the distance and all I saw was like these big tower blocks being built. And I was just like, yo, what's that going on? And somebody on the roof had told me, like, oh, those are some public housings that are being built. And I'm assuming that that was Mukuru that I was looking at. But I asked myself, I was like, okay, yes, Mukuru was a slum before. And I'm not sitting here saying that any one poverty is more dire than the other. But the reason I think that Kibera should be tackled first is because one, it is the largest one. It's an eyesore on the city, and two, it gives Kenya a bad rep, considering how wealthy the country is as a whole. The fact that we still hold one of the largest slums. I personally don't like seeing the what's it called? The what would you call it? The poverty tourism that happens. Yes, there's people who make money from it, but I'm like, there's way better content you can make than just going to show, oh, look at how poor people are living. This is the reality of some people. Yes, do it in documentary form, but it has become like commercialized in a sense where people like do it to get views. And I'm just like, that's not right. That doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right because it's like these are actual people's lives. Now, some people make money from it within the slums. Some of those tours are set up in a way to draw in the audience and request money and all this stuff. But overall, I would rather see Kibera not exist the way that it does and actually have tower blocks where people are living with dignity. Now, at the same time, when you look at from Google Earth where Kibera sits on prime land, prime land. Now, I'm not saying Mukuru is not prime land. It's like in the heart of the city, almost like right below the industrial area, if I'm correct. Is it below the industrial area? I think it is. But we're focusing on Kibera. Just looking from above, Kibera one borders a golf course. Two, it borders the forest on the south side of it. What is this forest called? I actually don't know. Is there a name for this forest? It's the forest that surrounds the Gong Road. I mean the track, the Gong race course, the place where they race horses and all that. That big forest it borders Kibera, and then on the other side of Kibera you have Kilimani, and on the south side of it you have Southlands and some more that Urgency Sports Complex. Pretty much, Kibera sits on the side of Nairobi where it is considered a lot more posh. Like on the left side of the expressway, you have the Kilimani, Kileleshwa, all those type of areas, and Lavington, and then just a little bit further back, you also have is that Karen? You have Karen and all that. So when I'm looking at Kibera from above, it's in prime area. It's in very green area. Now, Kibera is not green. Kibera is a built up slum, but everywhere around it is a lot of money. The way I look at it, I'm like, people have been trying to steal government land for the longest time. Government land is usually prime land because the government has been holding it for decades with different plans to do different things. And they're usually very large tracts. In order for you to find tracts such as large as government lands, you would have to buy up a bunch of individual private homes and private parcels and put them all together. So, what I fear is going to happen is that affordable housing units will be built everywhere else around the city, and eventually people will try to eat up Kibera. I believe Kibera should stay with the people who live there. Now, how do you approach this? I I would say for the first part, yeah, those housing units that are being built in Mukuru, if they're way more than the people who live in the area that they sit on, the government should first focus on taking people out of Kibera, putting them in those units. That way, they can have the space to start building in Kibera. Now, when I zoom in, it does look like there's some units being built in Kibera from what I'm seeing. It definitely does look like it's like there's units being built there. Oh, I forgot to mention. Upper Hill is right around the corner from Kibera. So you guys should understand. Kibera sits in the heart of an area that's surrounded by money essentially. But there's a few units being built. There's also units that were built back in the day. But I question, I'm like, why would they not go and try to tackle the largest slum? Why would they not try to tackle the the place in Nairobi that gives Nairobi a bad look compared to the rest of the city, right? I believe that people down the road, if Kibera is not redeveloped and the people who live there aren't kept there, people will try to eat that land up for themselves. It's prime land. Now, is Mukuru prime land? Obviously. But you got to think about it like this. What are you going to build in Mukuru? Mukuru is surrounded by other areas that are already developed, if I'm correct. Now, Kibera is surrounded by a golf course, surrounded by places where there's individual homes that sit on ground and large tracks. It's surrounded by upscale apartments. It's surrounded by a bunch of stuff. It borders a forest. Not many people in Nairobi will get to border a forest. But overall, I believe that Kibera should be tackled first. I believe that if it's not redeveloped and the people aren't kept there, hungry developers will start eyeing it and find a way to turn it into private ownership parcels. They'll try to build more high rises in that area. But for me, I look at it like the people who live there should be able to keep that land or stay there. They shouldn't be relocated all around the country. Maybe temporary, maybe put them in the Mukuru houses as Kibera gets built, but make sure Kibera stays with the people who were there originally. In addition to that, the train line, I don't know if that train line still runs. Let's assume it doesn't. Matter of fact, let me zoom in. Yeah, this train line does not run. From what I'm seeing, it does not look like it is functional. I'm seeing a lot of parts missing and everything. But I believe that Kibera's prime area for such housing developments because of that train line. If you recommission that train line, you don't have to worry about these people who are living below the average wage struggling to get into the city and whatnot. That line runs right through there. That is perfect for public housing. Even here in the US, when you look at where the train lines run, especially here in Brooklyn, I live not too far, probably like 3 blocks away from a train line. Usually, the most developed areas are the ones that border that train line. The people who will need to use public transportation usually live closest to the public transportation. And it also reduces how many people have to drive out further or walk out further because usually the people who rely on it the most live within proximity to it. So I'm just gonna leave that right there. Kibera sits on prime land, prime land. It borders a forest, it borders a golf course, and that golf course just throws me off because it's just like a stark difference of wealth. On one hand, you have millionaires who spend their day just golfing, and then on the other hand, just over a small little fence in a road, you have people who can barely find out where their next meal is coming from. But overall, it is situated in a great area. It already has land set aside for public transportation. All you would need to do is recommission that line, and now those people who live in Kibera can easily commute in and out of the city, decongesting our roads where everyone doesn't have to be on a matatu, everyone doesn't have to be on a boda boda. These people can go find jobs within the city and commute very quickly. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Should the public housing, affordable housing project focus on Kibera first, or is tackling all the different areas the best way to go about it. In addition to that, Kibera is a pretty large piece of land. Like the total area of Kibera, I believe that if you built up Kibera with those large apartment blocks, it can fit all the people who live in all the other slums. Now, I'm not saying take those other people out of their slums and move them to Kibera, but overall, this land is very well suited to house a lot of people. I believe it's a few hundred acres, and the people who get these affordable housing units, they shouldn't be forced to buy them. The rent to own model is good, but it should be shortened. It should be shortened in a way that people can own them within 15, 20 years, but there should be very, very strong background checks to make sure that you're not having random people from around the country trying to get them, people who already have land. It should be guaranteed that these units will go to the people who need it most. That's the end of the video. You guys let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree with me, and I'll see you on the next one. Love y'all. Hit the like, subscribe, and bye.